It's Monday and time for the Back to Business podcast, featuring Calgary's industry leaders. Welcome today's show host, Kim Hayden.
All right, so if you're as old as me, you will remember the B-52s. And there was a song I loved, and I used to have the big hair, and it was Roam Around the World. B-52s talked about you can roam without wings, you can roam without wheels. But our next guest says, oh, but it's so much better to roam with wheels. We're going to talk about how you can experience the most glorious backyards in the world right here in Canada. From the mountains in Alberta to the maple leaves in Quebec, all with Röam guiding you on your own tour. Stick around. This is going to be a great conversation. But first, our land acknowledgement. We here at the Calgary Petroleum Club, in the spirit of reconciliation, honor and acknowledge that the land on which we learn, work, and live is Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta. This place is a traditional homeland for the First Nations and Métis peoples, and today we all are part of this treaty land. Welcome to the show, Kat and Curtis. I just like saying Kat and Curtis, so that it just rolls, right?
Perfect. Yeah. Oh, it's great. It's
It
great
works.
you say. Yeah.
It works. Well, it must work because you guys have left your jobs and decided to go on this crazy adventure and build something new. I want to talk about first those drives between Calgary and Invermere and what first sparked the idea of Röam.
Yeah, I think, it started off in Hawaii where we had used a different audio app and we had done the road to Hana a couple of times as a family, as a couple. And we got to learn so much about the trip. We got to learn about things that were happening. We even got to do like little roadside stops that we hadn't planned on just impulsively. And so then, fast forward a few years later, and here we are traveling through the Rockies. We're traveling Highway 93. I'm asking Curtis a million questions. He has no answers for me. And we just thought, why isn't there something here that we could use similar to that can tell us about the little stops? It can tell us a little bit about the history, what we're seeing out the window, and keeping our kids entertained as well throughout the drive.
I did a lot of road trips with my kids between here and Wichita, Kansas.
Yeah.
One where I accidentally at like 3 a.m. took a wrong turn between somewhere around like Great Falls, Montana, and ended up in South Dakota on a buffalo reserve. But there's always a memory.
Yes.
There's always something. And I think that is, yes, flying expedites everything. But I think that if you can take the extra 3 or 4 days, go by vehicle.
Yeah,
Go by train, go by something on ground.
yeah. There's obviously a lot of places that you can't travel by plane and take that kind of shortcut. So why not make it a little bit more interesting by having some sort of narration while you go and actually learn about the stuff that you're seeing, right, as you go by, and always go, well, how did that get there? Why is that there? And having that narration might make the trip go by a little bit faster and more exciting for the whole family.
Having the narration, now there are apps out there, but those apps are typically funded by Marriott, Hilton, McDonald's, so they don't get into the gaps. Let's talk about how you realized there was a gap, and to get people to just explore their own backyard.
Yeah, I think, as you look at some of the other apps and some of the competitors out there, again, there's no shortage of people out there. I think even some of the travel companies, but a lot of it's, hey, look at Banff. And it's kind of for that first-time tourist in Canada, let's say. Even when we went to Hawaii, again, it was geared towards people who are visiting Hawaii for the first time. But I think, given the state of affordability these days, even thinking to our childhood of how many road trips did we do as families, right? When you couldn't drive anywhere and you're driving through the U.S., you're driving to the mountains. Curtis is from Saskatchewan, so his family would do quite a bit of driving as well. And sometimes we're traversing from Calgary to Saskatchewan to go see family. And there's just nothing really catering to some of those things of like, what about Kananaskis? What about, again, Highway 93 is a perfect example because your cell phone connections are out. You don't have any cell phone coverage. You don't have anything. So it's very much dead space, right? It's quite quiet along the road. And so those things that there's not too many out there. We did find another, there is a Canada app as well that has that one covered. But the content, when we listened to it, we didn't quite find it engaging enough. And we were just thinking, are our children going to listen to this? Are they going to really absorb it and really enjoy it? Because it didn't have a personality behind it, right? It didn't have kind of a branded piece behind it of let's get you engaged, which we found with that Hawaii one. At first, they kind of didn't love the voice, but then they loved the voice. And then they were just fully engaged in the whole thing, surprising to us and repeating back history that we didn't think that they were taking into account. But it's just, you've got to make it more experiential versus a lecture along the road.
Absolutely. And that's that. I would fall asleep, something like that.
Yes.
But if you could read it to me like a Dr. Seuss book, I am in it to win it. I know everything. I'm ready to go trivia night on you.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Hawaii app, the guy that does the voice for it, which is really engaging, he's definitely got that surfer vibe voice to it, and like, hey man, here's the next stop, and it's really cool. And so like for me and Kat, we were like, oh, we like that. Like at first it was kind of annoying or whatever, but then we're like, no, actually we like this. It was actually really interesting. And then same with our kids, we're kind of the same thing. And some of the other apps that we've heard are very like monotone, very like informative. They have lots of information, but I would probably fall asleep if I was driving and listening to it, which is not a good thing.
When you're at the wheel.
So that's where we want to make this a little bit more engaging, so that like the kids are actually interested to listen to it and experience.
Yeah.
So you have the cool crazy cousin in the car with you.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and that's kind of it of, how do we get different people to narrate? And you could choose, do you want a boyfriend to narrate to you while you're driving the car because you're a bunch of women and you just want someone along for the ride, right?
Like Sean Connery.
We'll put in the request. We're not sure if he's busy.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, darling, turn left here if you'd like to see this, right? Things like that we can actually have so much fun with the personalities behind who's guiding you along your tour, right? Because again, some people might want to hear somebody from like their sweet old grandmother type of voice, or somebody might want to have someone who's young and hip and telling them all the coolest things around, right?
Yeah.
So there's so much we can play with having the app and just building it as a personality. That's another person in your car that's telling you what you want to hear about.
Okay. So so this is not a static app, meaning that it's not a one and done. It's been like somebody's just recorded and it's been logged and it's left, correct? Like walk me through the mechanics of, I'm getting ahead of myself a little because now you're triggered, like I'm curious. So you're saying that you can have your grandma or your boyfriend, or we can put in a request to Sean Connery. Walk me through the mechanics of how you deliver this app for people.
So I think first, obviously, we're just startups. So it's got to start with our MVP first. Let's get the tours in. Let's get these pieces in. We probably won't have as many engaging voices just yet. It wouldn't necessarily be your boyfriend narrating or a person, but it could just be we start with like 8 personalities.
Yes.
And then ideally we can say, let's record the same tours in those different personalities and play it according to that. I think a big part of it too is like, we want to look at how do we give back to indigenous communities. And obviously those are things that are very hard to record. So how can we partner and have some of those voices tell stories?
Absolutely.
Right? So I think that's where first to start, we've got to have just one voice. It'll most likely be mine at the start, just because we want to prove out the concept, get this ready to roll. And then eventually start looking at what can we layer in. But in the app world, it's all about like, you got to ask your user base. What do they want to hear, right? Who do they want to hear from? Do people want other kids narrating stories, right? Because they are going to be driving with their families. So from there, we can look at how do we grow the voices to actually do the narrations within the story, within the drives that you're doing. And then how do we start leveraging AI to start serving up the right pieces that you want to hear? If you want to hear tourism, if you want to hear you love to learn about rocks and all you want to hear about is rocks along the way. What if you want to hear just kind of, folklore or tales out along the way that you're going, right? Or if you want to just learn about the animals. So different things that we can have AI as we start tagging all the information behind the scenes to make sure that it's delivering the content the way you want to hear it and experience it.
That is your system like pretty robust? Do you guys have like your own server kind of thing? Like, I'm just curious about the mechanics of this.
Yeah, so right now, basically everything is just ran off the individual phone, right? So it's downloadable app and you run it off there. Future iterations is going to be how do we make this more robust to be able to handle different kind of content that we want to bring in, make it more asynchronous so that if we have new content, we don't want to have somebody go and download the app again and do an update or whatever, right? We want to be able to just bring in that content right away so that we push out a notification to people saying, "Hey, we've got new stops along the way, and you've done this trip a couple times or whatever. We have new stops. We have new content. Just load up the app and it's there, right?" And that kind of goes with some of like the future iterations that we're thinking about doing of can we have people like customize their own stops along the way, right? Like you're going from Calgary to Toronto. There's a lot of stops along the way. You want to pick different things, but you want to choose what those are. And maybe they put it in there. So they're building out their own kind of list as to the stops that they want to see. There was one comment from the pitch night where they said, it'd be really interesting if, somebody's getting married somewhere else and they wanted to add the stops as they go of here's where we first met and here's what we go the stops that we always frequented and everything, and being able to put in some of that content. We need to build that out, but it's all stuff that's definitely doable once we get to that point.
In future iterations, do you think that you would have some sort of a user interface that would allow users, if they find something unique or crazy or cool, that they could actually, give a kind of a short monologue of some sort and share that to your services, and then if you deem it appropriate and find that it's truthful and valid, then it can be actually put as an option?
Yeah, and I think that's definitely something we want to look into, but that's also like one of the hardest things because user submitted content, you need to be on top of it, right? Like you need somebody to go and review it, make sure that there's no foul language, it's appropriate for all ages, and that it is truthful. The information that they're putting on there is legit. It's one thing if you're just sharing it with your own friends and family. It's another thing if you're sharing it with a user base of 100,000 people that might end up accessing it.
Yeah, we had an instance where we were talking about another app that people use for hiking that's quite popular. And someone I know had mentioned, they're like, just so you know, I actually go in there and I downgrade, like I give a thumbs down to all the trails I like because I don't want people going to them. So you have to be cautious sometimes about the user-generated content because sometimes people will start trying to manipulate it so that they don't have people going and visiting those things, so that they take them elsewhere. So those are things that we just want to make sure that if we are taking user-generated content, we have to really control it and kind of
Absolutely.
work it slowly first.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I can totally see some of the challenges around that. Because like I can see how that could turn into something so not what you anticipated. Like I've seen some of those Discord channels, and I don't know if Discord was actually initially designed for some of that. So let's talk about, you touched on that you're a startup, which the world wouldn't have what it has if we didn't have people who had the guts enough to be a startup, right? Talk about the mission behind Röam. What change are you hoping to create for travelers and local communities?
So we're kind of on the mission of journeys with driven by purpose. We know that as we're encouraging people to go visit other areas, to go out in their own backyard, we are mindful of tourism is impacting those local communities for better and for worse. There's always kind of that double-edged sword. So the idea was, how do we help people see what they have at their disposal, but also how do we give back to those communities? And so that's something that we're looking at into the app of how do we give back to nonprofits. So the idea is that when they purchase a tour within the app, that a portion of that goes back to those communities. And luckily, Curtis works at Benevity, and so he has a lot of experience in the nonprofit area and all those kind of registered charities. So that's something that we want to make sure that we have an app that is donating back to those local communities, because I think that's one of the hard parts is if you look at all the apps that people use today, the funds don't stay in Canada or they don't stay in our local communities.
No, they don't. And that's why I was asking, because like I know that they're like you go on and they're all sponsored by a hotel chain or something like that. And like I know that if you go outside of Banff, on the whatever that road is. You guys will know. What's the road when you pass Banff and you're on your way to Lake Louise?
On the Trans-Canada.
Okay, Trans-Canada. Sorry, guys. Needless to say, don't let me read your map, folks. Don't let me read your map.
This is where our app is going to help you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I will tell you a place that needs to be on that app. There is a little tiny in between this little hotel, 5-star food, but it's not even a hotel. It's little cabins, and it has a main little chalet kind of thing. And it was where all the people who wired up, so RCMP and the electricians and builders of all of these incredible resorts, it's where they stayed. So some of these little log cabins, they're little like 2-room cabins, and they have little fireplaces that are all still wood. We found it literally by accident.
Yeah.
And it was one of the most magical anniversaries I had. I think it was anniversary number like 26 for us.
Yeah.
By the way, we just had our 31st, and I just want to plug this. My husband forgot to mention, but my son bought me pizza. I'm just saying, you know you've done it right.
Oh boy.
31 years and your kid is buying you dinner. Don't get me wrong. I love my husband. He'll be around for a few more years. But these pieces, the story behind these little cabins and this was an independent family-owned operation, and they had all organic like jams and honeys, and a lot of the food came from foraging, and it was like, this is so cool.
Mm.
Yeah.
But I can see why some people would say, ooh, don't go there, because they wouldn't want not to be able to get the reservation. And to me, folks, that's a little NIMBY-ish. Don't do that. Don't do that. Just be ahead of your travel plans. Don't rob others of really unique opportunities. So we talked about the technology and where we're going, and I know I jumped ahead in the conversation, but the technology has me really fascinated because there's so many things that are happening daily on new AIs. I mean, we're barely keeping up. I want to hire somebody full time just to break stuff because there's so much going on. Now, working at, but are you still at Benevity?
Still at Benevity.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to correct you earlier.
Okay.
I don't want people to think I left my job.
No, everybody, Curtis has not left the job
either.
Oh, so you guys are really hustling. And how old are your kids?
14, 12, and 9.
Wow, you guys are hitting your busy years. Just so everybody listening, if you are out there and you are 32 and just had your first baby and you think this is the busiest time, good luck. Good luck. Good luck with that. And then keeping them rounded up in a car and not killing each other is always a feat. So I think that this could actually be a sanity app for some families. And tourism and local tourism is on a massive rise, no matter which country you're in.
Yep.
And I think it's because we're seeing it, although you may not feel it right now because you've decided to be absolutely cray-cray and go out and start a new business while raising 3 children. But the reality is that we're starting to see a squeeze down in time due to the efficiencies of AI, that now instead of, crushing it at 45 hours, we're now starting to see people that, I'm 38 hours. I've got 7 hours on my hand. What am I going to do with this time? And they're getting out and they're seeing more around them. From the technology and the apps and such, let's look future forward. And this is, again, folks, I'm jumping ahead. I know that's segment 3, so the assets, but I'm just really fascinated by the technology. Where do you think this is going?
I mean, the world's our oyster, right? I mean, the entire app, Kat kind of started it by asking AI of, how do I build a travel app, right? And she had something put together, but she didn't know where to go from there. I have a background in development. So I was like, well, let me play with it a little bit and see where we can go. And was able to take it, and what AI produced was actually good enough to get an app started.
Yeah.
And was able to start running it. And then I just kind of went from there, and I don't know how to build an app either. So I was using AI a lot to say, hey, how do I do this? How do I do this? And it was giving me information and being able to pop it in there, and stuff is just working. So I think whether we continue to use AI for that stuff or we actually have people that can do the work, we can essentially build out anything that we put our minds to, because I mean anything is possible.
Yes.
Look at the technology that's out there today. So
and I think there's a few places of where do we use AI versus where don't we use AI.
Exactly.
And I think, if I think of Walmart and when they use generative AI on their website, it was kind of like, hey, if you're searching for balloons, let's say, it's like, oh, it's assuming that you're going to be having a birthday party. Let me recommend other items that could go with a birthday party, of tablecloths or these kind of things, right? So similar to that, it's how do we use the AI in the system so that right now as we're building a tour that says like, we'll take you from point A to point B. But as the technology grows, as we start tagging, as we start getting the content built up, how do we have the AI curate, tell me your destination, and I will give you the content according to the destination you're going to, which would be a very different experience as to what we're starting with, just because
it's more of a concierge approach.
More of a concierge, right? Like, tell me what your likes are. Tell me what you don't like. Let me start building it. Kind of like, I don't know if you've used the Spotify DJ kind of thing, right? That type of aspect of how do we get there so that you're literally getting it curated for what you want.
Yes.
But I know we've been asked some of the things of, we even thought, to start out, we'll start using AI to search some of the content and to start compiling from different sources we found. But it's been very tricky. It has not gotten some of the content correct. It hasn't given us things in the right order necessarily, no matter how many times you try prompting it. So in some cases, we still have to fact check the AI. And so we're going back to guidebooks. We're going back to
absolutely.
All that old school piece.
Well, in AI right now, they're saying it's 32% false now, because it's hitting this kind of mass generation where it's collected so much stuff that now it's giving back false information. So
and it sounds very confident when it does it, right? So you're believing it.
I know. And it says, I'm smart and genius every time.
I know.
I love Chatty. She's awesome. She's like, yeah, rock star, you got this. Go get it. And then you go, oh, wait, that's not right.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's very apologetic though when you tell it it's wrong. It's like, oh, sorry, this was my mistake.
Yeah, and then when you have to do it in all capitals 3 times.
Yeah. And then it's like, oh, you're out of prompts.
Yeah.
And then I think the other one too is even the voice part, right? We've been asked like, are you going to use some of these voice tools to do the recordings? And at first we thought, okay, well, maybe we tried just to get to market quickly, just to start testing things. But there is a bit of a level of ick of saying we want to give back to communities, we want to give back to people. The core part of our app is really going to be not just the technology behind the scenes, but like we said, that branding, that voice, that person who's in the car with you.
Absolutely.
So it just doesn't feel quite right to use AI for those type of things. And then too, when we started looking into pricing, what's worse is that one of our biggest differentiators would be handcuffed to whatever those companies want to charge us. And so, is that really where we want to put our business at risk of saying everything's dependent on AI and whatever happens out there is how we have to start validating our pricing, is how we have to start changing it. So those are things that we have to look at in terms of what do we want in our business to be driven by AI? Where do we want to use AI versus what are things that we just know from our own standpoint that can't be AI at the end of the day?
Absolutely. Now, here's the fly in the ointment of building a new company. And this is the hardest thing out there. So to the 91% of startups that are still working to get that first 7 figures cracked, I'm just here to validate sales and finding the money is the hardest thing. Without somebody who has a marketing and sales ability, not just marketing, not just making it pretty. Can you actually sell it? Let's talk about that, Kat, because that's the fly in the ointment. That's the prospecting and selling is the biggest challenge. What are you doing differently than other apps?
Well, I'm a little bit lucky. This isn't my first business that I'm starting. I started up Sensible Marketer, which happens to be a marketing agency. And we actually work with a lot of businesses on this very thing of how do you get clients? That's been a lot of my background. So having to bridge the sales and the marketing aspect, not too worried here. I think, this one, because it's an app, we're thinking that we might have to use a bit of the model from MailChimp, what they did of, you start with a bit of a freemium first. You get people into the app, right? Because one of the biggest things is we have to get users on the app first.
Like tokenization.
Yeah, right. Just to prove that like people are using it, get some of that feedback. So there's no shame in hustle. Do we go to our Facebook groups where we are in some of these smaller communities and say, hey, can we just get some of your feedback? Can we have people try this app? Driving on the highway, sometimes we're like, oh, would truckers actually be interested in some of this stuff, right? They're doing the long hauls. So do you offer it as a freemium like MailChimp did? And then eventually you start looking at, where am I going to start charging the rates for this? Where am I going to start increasing the costs of it? Because we need to make sure that we have people validating that it's good. We need to get some of that feedback. Again, some of the people giving thumbs ups to each tour or anything like that, right? I think Curtis already scared the heck out of me of like, we cannot get bad reviews on the App Store, right? Like, because once they're on there, they're really hard to remove.
Yep.
So those are things that, we've got to start small. And that's, I think, why we're kind of bootstrapping ourselves and saying, let's see what we can solve first. Let's see what we can do. Let's start sharing our story and see who wants to join, who wants to come along for the ride. No pun intended. But it's really about not being scared of it. And then I think as we start to grow, then it's knocking on doors and it's talking to people. I think even going to that pitch competition, we had people being like, I can introduce you to so-and-so. We can introduce you to some people. Have you talked to, Travel Alberta? Have you talked? So I think it's actually not the part that scares me the most to start getting those users. It's really the exciting part, I think, at the end of the day.
I'm with you. I believe in I have people come to me and it's about the monetization of the messaging or the messaging that can be monetized. And I'm not doing it for the money. The money comes because the message is moving people. It's creating community. It's bringing things together. And, and I think you sound like you'd be similar to me in the sense that there's just some people I don't work with, and that's okay. You do you. I have a very kind of strict code of when I die, this is what I want my Google review to look like. And I want to know that I didn't leave anything behind that is negative to character that your great grandkids see, because this stuff there's going to be an old archive somewhere, and they're going to be watching around, twitching and changing channels and stuff, right? That they're not going to be touching a keyboard in 80 years, but then they're going to see something. And that as an innovator, when you are separating from and you're already, but when you move into where it's your name is front.
Yeah.
Right?
Where people are buying from you, right? And
exactly.
I had this conversation with another startup who contacted us, and they were saying, do we start with a brand? Do we start with this? I said, just go and sell first. Go sell it, because, once Curtis and I have it launched in the App Store, once we have users using it, things might change depending on how they're using it, depending on what they tell us they're actually finding the best benefit, right?
I can probably guarantee they will change, because I know that the evolution of what I've been doing since 2014, every time I turn around, it shifts. And part of it is because you learn a new skill. You learn something different. Technology shifts. Something changes. And you go, oh, what if we did this, right? Like I'm sitting here listening to this, and I just interviewed a gentleman who is actually two gentlemen last week. One that physically walked from Arizona to Kalispell, because when his son passed, he wanted to take his son's ashes from Arizona so he's looking at starting a campaign. Instead of him doing 1,400 miles, can he get 14 states to do 100 for youth? This now becomes, again, in parallel to not flying over the destination, but experiencing the destination. And then I just interviewed a guy who bicyclers. That's you talk about motorcyclers, but there's these huge campaigns of all these bicyclers that are hitting like these literally weird places, and they're seeing all sorts of things, and those are like boots on the ground or pedals on the ground, right?
Yeah.
So there's so many opportunities there. Where do you see Röam in 2 to 3 years? And I know this is like everything is shifting, and you're just hoping to get your kids out the door without like them burning the house to the ground. God love them. I love my children. I love my children.
They buy pizza, so
yeah.
You love your child.
Absolutely. They're all out the door. They're even better now. But in 2 to 3 years, where do you guys see Röam?
I don't know if we've actually thought that far ahead, but ideally we have a a user base would be great. Using it would be lovely. And I think just continuously building on it. I'm really hoping that this isn't something that's washes out in a year or something because it's just not getting the attraction that it deserves. I'd hope that at least we have a user base, and then whether it's before then or at that point in time, we start talking to other businesses to see how we can monetize it, whether it be with hotels or travel companies or Tourism Alberta or whatever it is, to see how can we partner with them and monetize it and do that. And I mean, the ultimate goal is to maybe just offload it and sell it off and say, here you go. And, we get a stack of cash and say, there goes that baby.
Build it. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and all the work, it's like a locomotive. All the work is in that first bit of track, right? Getting all the information, making sure the systems are in place, everything's ready to roll.
Yeah, we'll have to see where it takes us, because I think Curtis has created a lot of the groundwork for it. So there's no reason why just has to be Alberta based or even Canada based, right?
Well, I think right now, yes, it's lovely that it's Alberta based, but the reality is that anything Canada focused, I do not think you could find a better time to launch a Canadian initiative ever in the history of this country. I think that there's so much emphasis being brought back onto it. I do love the fact that this is because you're doing more in the experiential space and the more descriptive space versus the academic textbook. This is, we're right.
Yeah.
I think this is a great opportunity for vision impaired also, because vision impaired do not just sit at home. They are traveling with loved ones and friends. My mother's partner has been blind since he was 27, and until he was late 70s, early 80s, was selling a boat illegally between Florida and Cuba. Dude was Pirates of the Caribbean, but couldn't see anything. And so I know that there is an entire world of vision impaired people that are now being freed up through new technologies.
Yeah.
Where do you see your app having more creative language and more exciting kind of unique experiences, being able to work for families like that?
Well, I think that's the beauty of, again, kind of that AI piece and us having different personalities, that, again, what the user base tells us we need, because those are things, again, I honestly haven't considered that has not come up, right? So
I have 4 suggestions right here since we started talking.
Yeah, but it's all, the platform can scale, right? Because for us, it really comes down to, we just need to code the different stops in the back end. We need the longitude, latitude, and then we also need, the content to go with it. So then how do we do that? So again, do we have some that are more descriptive, right? Because not everyone necessarily wants to be told what they're seeing, but do we have different things that come up? And I think that's what's really fascinating, is that we can build these different offshoots or off-ramps, I guess, depending on what people tell us that they need or where they see the utility that we haven't even considered. Because again, we're a family of 5. We want to get the kids off the iPads in the back seat. We want them actually looking around and seeing things. But maybe for somebody who is just single but tends to travel a lot on the road, or those salespeople, maybe they want something different. Or again, maybe somebody has people with different disabilities, and so they want to have something that caters to their family. So we just don't know. We don't know what we don't know until people start playing with it and telling us.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So those are things that the platform is so flexible, and again, it really is easy for us to scale it, whether it's, again, Canada-wide, again, do we do Europe? There's AI out there that can help with translations and all those kind of things. So it can grow, and we'll just have to see how do we manage that as we scale it up.
I'm excited for you. I see so much opportunity within this space. Everywhere. I mean, I think there's so much that you can do with an app like this, because I think that there is a generation or two even of young parents that have not done road trips. And so they haven't done the license plate game or the I Spy game
Or the 20 questions.
or the
right?
20 questions. And that even those types of fillers would be absolutely hilarious to have those as prompted fillers within the app. Oh, we're going to be on the road now. We're going to see 34 rocks in the next 28 kilometers. But in the meantime, I spy red rocks, blue rocks. Do you know what they are? So, there's so much with it. And can you tell I've done a few Dr. Seuss books in my time?
It actually brings up a good idea of having some sort of interactive thing where it's like car bingo, where you could actually go on a map and say what you see and stuff while you're driving.
Passport.
I'm
thinking a passport. Yeah. I can see a passport, and if you are tokenizing this, folks, and you get something really cool, maybe you can get a few extra tokens that you can qualify for filling in the passport. You just have to pass the mustard. Make sure that you've given true information and no dirty words, please.
Exactly.
I want to bring this into I love the Calgary Petroleum Club. I am a diehard through and through CalPete cheerleader. How have you found connecting through the CalPete Club, Calgary Petroleum Club, CPC, whatever analogy you use? How have you found connecting through the community here has supported your entrepreneurial journey?
It's been really fantastic. I think, we actually have never been involved in oil and gas, so we actually didn't know much about the Petroleum Club to begin with. I think I've been here for a couple events with the Catholic Immigration Society a couple of times, but this was really our first interaction with the community here, and it's been a really fantastic experience. I think even just having the idea of a pitch night, having you have a place to stand up and sell what you're doing and see how the crowd reacts, it's been really interesting to see and eye-opening. And then too, so many people are encouraging or have different connections or different things that they wanted to share with you. So it's been a really great experience so far, and we hope to kind of continue to grow it.
Yeah, I think everybody that we've talked to here has provided a lot of good insight, a lot of good valuable information and connections and stuff that whether it be them themselves that can help us or people that they know. That night was, well, I know this person in this industry and I know this person that does this, and if you need anything, just let me know, and connecting with them on LinkedIn and that. So now there's a lot of connections and availability through.
One gentleman came up to me. He's like, I used to actually take people on tours, and he started explaining all the shale that's at the top of Castle Mountain to me. I'm not a geologist, but that's fascinated, right? And it's just you hear these stories, and he's like, just go to the guidebooks. It's all in the guidebooks, right? And so I was like, oh yeah, gotta stop at the library and pick up some of those and see what's there. But just a really welcoming community, and seeing that they're all passionate about what young entrepreneurs are up to and starting out in their journeys. It's really warming to see that.
And old entrepreneurs like yourselves.
And old.
We're young.
Yes. My goodness. Oh, okay.
Yes.
We're not in our 20s. So
There you go. Well, and I just we have the young professionals, we have the entrepreneur, but you know what? I had never been to the Petroleum Club until 4 years ago myself.
Yeah.
I've always been an entrepreneur, and I would have never been in oil. I mean, I moved here in 99. Didn't know anybody. I had some clients who were in oil, but that wasn't me. And I love the evolution. And it's interesting when you take a professional environment and you open it up for entrepreneurs, you allow entrepreneurs to start networking on professional levels.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's absolutely phenomenal that way. Well, I am excited. I'm waiting for the tokenization, my passport. I'm ready to hit the road. Folks out there, if you want information, which I know you do, you may, statistically speaking, you're listening to this in your car, so you have a car. You'll be able to find all of Kat and Curtis's information on Röam in the show notes, and we'll make sure they're on the website here. And all I can say is roam around the world.
Your B-52s, right?
Yes. You know what? And nothing like being trapped in a car for a 1-week vacation for your children to really find out how weird their mother is. And it's okay. Own it, Mom. Own it. If you had Doc Martens in the 80s, you're my kind of gal. So until next time, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for joining us today on the Back to Business podcast. Be sure to visit calpeteclub.com, calpeteclub.com, to find out more about upcoming events, networking opportunities, and membership. If you are not already a valued member at the CPC, where we are proudly connecting and supporting Calgary's business leaders.